The Texas sky was bruised purple when the first drops of rain began to fall. Heat still clung to the asphalt, making the air shimmer like the last breath of daylight. The road stretched empty for miles, a narrow ribbon cutting through the outskirts of Laredo. A silver Honda sat on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the dusk. Inside, Camila Reyes gripped the steering wheel with both hands, knuckles pale, chest heaving. Her heartbeat thudded loud enough to drown out the hum of crickets outside. She had been driving since morning. No music, no calls, just silence and fear. Her phone lay dead on the passenger seat beside a cracked photograph of her mother. Every time she blinked, she saw the same image, the door slamming open, the shouting, the flash of a gun. Now, stranded on this forgotten road, she felt the weight of everything closing in. Rain started to fall harder, drumming against the roof. She tried the ignition again. The engine coughed, stuttered, and died. "Please," she whispered to no one. Her breath fogged the glass. She wiped at it with trembling hands, squinting through the rain. Headlights appeared in the distance, a single pair, growing brighter. Her chest tightened. 1,000 possibilities flashed through her mind, none of them safe. The vehicle slowed. A black SUV, clean, expensive, out of place. It rolled to a stop a few feet ahead of her. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall and composed, rain sliding down his dark coat. His shirt clung to his chest, his movements slow, deliberate. His face was sharp-edged, illuminated briefly by the flash of lightning. Olive skin, black hair slicked back, eyes the color of storm clouds. He approached her car, the sound of rain masking his footsteps. When she didn't roll down the window, he leaned forward, speaking through the glass. "Turn off your lights," he said. His voice was low, calm, with a faint rasp that made it sound like an order softened into a promise. She hesitated. He waited, unmoving, rain dripping from his jawline. Finally, she cracked the window an inch. "I'm fine," he smiled faintly. "You're shaking." I said, "I'm fine." He glanced at her car, at the dead engine, the way her hands trembled against the wheel. "You're not." She stared straight ahead. "Please, just go." He looked at her for another long moment, then said, "Get out of the car." Her breath caught. "What?" "Get out," he repeated, quieter now. Lightning cracked across the horizon. For a moment she saw him clearly. Calm eyes, steady posture, rain-soaked shirt clinging to muscle. Not threatening, not kind, simply inevitable. She opened the door, stepping out into the rain. Her shoes sank into the mud at once. "Engine's gone," he said, glancing under the hood. "You're not going anywhere tonight." "I'll walk." He turned toward her then, voice sharp with something between disbelief and amusement. "In this storm, you wouldn't make it a mile." "I don't have a choice." "Yes," he said, stepping closer. "You do." He held out his hand toward his SUV. "Get in. I'll protect you." The words hit her like a blow. They shouldn't have comforted her. They should have scared her. But the way he said them, quiet, certain, unhurried, made something inside her crack open. She looked at him, rain running down her face. "Why?" "Because no one else will." He turned, walking back toward the SUV, not looking to see if she followed. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she did. Inside, the vehicle was warm, the scent of leather and cedar filling the air. She pressed herself against the door, still shivering, her soaked clothes clinging to her skin. He drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. After a few minutes, she found her voice. "You didn't tell me your name." He glanced at her, the faint reflection of the dashboard lights glinting in his eyes. "You didn't ask." "I'm asking now." "Matthias," he said. She turned her gaze back to the rain-streaked window. "Where are you taking me?" "Someplace dry." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you need." Lightning illuminated the road again. The wipers thudded rhythmically, the only sound between them. Finally, she said, "You talk like someone who gives orders for a living." He smiled, faint but real this time. "Maybe I do," she frowned. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," he said simply. "If I wanted something, you'd already know." His tone made her skin prickle. Not with fear. Something else. She turned away, but the silence between them was alive. After a few more miles, she whispered, "There were men. Back home. They killed someone. Someone close to you?" She nodded once. "My mother." Matthias didn't speak. His hand tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "Did you see them?" he asked. "No," she said. "But I know who sent them." He glanced at her. "A name?" She shook her head. "Doesn't matter." "It does," he said quietly. She looked at him then, really looked. His jaw was tense, his gaze fixed on the road. There was something in his voice, authority, danger, and something else she couldn't name. "You know them, don't you?" she asked softly. He didn't answer right away. The SUV curved through the dark road, headlights slicing through mist. "Everyone in this city knows them," he said finally. "Some fear them. Some work for them. And you?" He gave a humorless laugh. "I am them," her breath caught. "You mean," he cut her a glance. "You don't want to finish that sentence." The rain softened into drizzle. The city lights of Laredo flickered in the distance now, amber glow against the storm. Matthias slowed near a narrow turnoff that led to a gated property surrounded by mesquite trees. The guard nodded once when he saw the car and opened the gate without a word. Camilla's pulse raced. "Where are we?" "Safe," he said. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." He parked beneath a covered drive and turned off the engine. The sudden quiet was deafening. He turned to her then, his face softened by the dim light. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said. "But if you stay, you'll have to stop lying. To me and to yourself." "I'm not lying." His gaze lingered on her wet hands clenched in her lap. "You're shaking, Camilla. You've been running too long to remember how to stand still." Her name on his lips made her chest tighten. "How do you know my name?" He leaned back in his seat, eyes half-shadowed. "You said it yourself." "No, I didn't." He smiled faintly, not answering. Something cold and electric passed through her. For the first time since the night began, she realized the truth. She hadn't just been rescued, she had been found. And as the rain eased into silence, Matthias Vargas, the man she now knew could stop storms with a word, looked at her like she was a secret he'd been waiting his whole life to uncover. "Get some rest," he said softly. "You'll need it. Tomorrow you'll tell me everything." And before she could ask who he really was, he stepped out into the fading rain, leaving her inside the quiet hum of the car and the sound of her heartbeat echoing against the darkness. The morning light came late, filtered through thick curtains that muted the world to shades of gold and gray. Camilla woke in a strange room, the kind that was too quiet to feel safe. The sheet smelled faintly of cedar and something darker, unfamiliar. For a moment she didn't move. Her mind hovered between dreams and memory. The rain, the black SUV, Matthias's voice cutting through the storm like a promise she didn't trust. "Get in, I'll protect you." Her throat was dry. The sound of distant footsteps brought her fully awake. She pushed herself upright and scanned the space. High ceilings, bare concrete walls softened by rich wooden floors, a single painting of a desert landscape. The window overlooked acres of open land, pale grass, a few trees bent by the wind, and a road that disappeared toward the city skyline far away. A soft knock on the door made her flinch. Before she could answer, a woman stepped in, maybe mid-30s with kind eyes and a calmness that didn't belong in a house like this. She carried a tray with coffee, fruit, and toast. "Señor Vargas asked me to bring you breakfast," she said. Her accent was gentle. Northern Mexico with a trace of border English. Camilla pulled the blanket tighter. "You work for him?" The woman nodded. "Everyone here does." "What is this place?" "A safe house," she replied simply, setting the tray on the dresser. "You're not a prisoner, if that's what you're thinking. But you shouldn't leave until he says it's safe." Camilla hesitated. "And if I decide to go anyway?" The woman smiled sadly. "Then I hope you run fast." The house was larger than it looked from the outside. Hallways opened into courtyards filled with pale light and the hum of cicadas. Men moved quietly through the grounds, unarmed, polite, but watchful. When Camilla found Matias, he was standing under a veranda, speaking on the phone in Spanish too quick for her to follow. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, and the sunlight caught the faint scar that traced his forearm. When he saw her, he ended the call immediately. "You're awake," he said. "I was trying to understand where I am. You're safe. That's what you keep saying." He studied her for a moment. "And yet you don't believe me." "I don't know what to believe," she said. "You said you'd protect me, but you haven't told me from what." He walked toward her slowly. "You were being followed, Camilla. The men who killed your mother didn't stop there. They were looking for you." Her stomach turned. "How do you know that?" "Because I used to work with them." The air between them tightened. "You're part of—" He shook his head. "Not anymore. Not since the day I realized what they'd done to people like you." "And what are people like me?" "Innocent," he said quietly. "Collateral in someone else's war." She looked away, trying to process his words. "So what happens now?" "I find out who ordered the hit on your family," he said. "And I make sure they can't reach you again." Camilla's eyes flashed. "You can't just decide that for me. You don't even know me," he smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But I know what it's like to lose everything." There was something raw in his voice, a grief that lived too close to the surface. She wanted to ask, but the look in his eyes stopped her. That afternoon, the rain returned in brief bursts. The sound against the metal roof was steady, almost soothing. Camilla found herself walking the perimeter of the house, watching workers carry boxes, listening to snippets of conversation she couldn't quite piece together. Everything here ran on quiet discipline. Even the fear was organized. Later, Matias found her on the balcony overlooking the fields. He handed her a folded file. "This belonged to your mother," he said. She frowned. "How did you get it?" "She kept records," he said. "Names, dates, the people she spoke to about her husband's debts. She was trying to protect you." Camilla opened the file with trembling hands. Inside were letters written in her mother's looping handwriting, a few receipts, and a small photograph. Her mother standing beside a man Camilla didn't recognize. His arm was around her, his face turned partly from the camera. "Who is he?" she whispered. "Your father," Matias said. She shook her head. "That's impossible. My father died when I was 6. "That's what your mother told you," he said quietly. "But it wasn't true. He's alive, and he's the reason you're in danger." Her legs felt weak. She sank into a chair, clutching the photograph. "Why would she lie? To keep you away from his world. From mine, and now I'm in it anyway," she murmured. "Yes," he said, his voice low. "But you're not alone." She looked up at him, searching his face for the truth. "Why are you helping me, really?" He hesitated. Then, because once someone helped me, and I repaid them by walking away. I'm not making that mistake again." The rain began again, heavier now. Camilla turned toward the sound, trying to hide the tremor in her hands. "Matias," she said softly, "if my father's alive, what happens when you find him?" His eyes met hers, steady but unreadable. "That depends on whether he's still the man your mother tried to protect." A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by thunder rolling like a warning. In that moment, Camilla understood 2 things: that her mother had died keeping a secret too dangerous to bury, and that the man standing beside her carried more ghosts than she could imagine. And yet, standing there in the storm, she felt something else. Not safety exactly, but the fragile beginning of trust. Matias noticed it too. His expression softened, almost imperceptibly. "You should rest," he said. "Tomorrow we start looking for the truth." As he turned to leave, she caught his sleeve, stopping him. "Matias, thank you." He didn't smile, but his eyes held hers for a long moment before he said, "Don't thank me yet." When he was gone, she stood alone on the balcony, the photo still in her hand, the storm washing the dust from the world below. Somewhere in that endless rain, the line between protector and hunted blurred. And she knew that when the truth came, It would change both of them forever. The wind carried the scent of dust and rain that morning, the kind of scent that warned of change. The storm had broken overnight, leaving the air clear and heavy with silence. The world outside Matthias's villa seemed still, but inside, the air thrummed with something unsaid. Camila didn't sleep. She sat at the table in the small library, the photograph of her father lying between two coffee cups gone cold. The ink on the back had faded. No name, only a date. 19 years ago. When Matthias appeared in the doorway, the light behind him cast his shadow long across the floor. He had changed into a clean shirt, sleeves rolled, but his face carried the same unreadable weight as always. "You've been up all night," he said. "So have you," she replied. He didn't deny it. He walked to the sideboard, poured water into a glass, and leaned against the counter. "You're still thinking about him." "He's alive," she said quietly. "Somewhere out there, he's alive, and he's the reason she died." "The reason I'm here," Matthias set the glass down. "I found something." Her head lifted. He slid a file across the table. Inside were surveillance photos, documents, and one thin sheet with a familiar name at the top. "Your father is working under a new identity," Matthias said. "Miguel Herrera. He's been laundering money for a rival group out of Monterrey." Camilla's stomach turned. "So you found him?" "I found where he's hiding." "That's not the same." She closed her eyes, pressing her palms together. "I don't know if I want to see him." Matthias's voice softened. "You need to. Whatever truth you've been running from, it ends there." "And you?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why do you care so much about my truth?" He didn't look away. "Because it's tied to mine." Camilla frowned. "What does that mean?" He hesitated, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn piece of paper. "Before I left that life, I worked for the same man who hired your father. I was the one who moved the money he stole." The words hung between them like smoke. Camilla's heart pounded. "You're saying you knew him?" "Yes. You knew what he was doing and you didn't stop it?" "I didn't know what he was doing to your mother," Matthias said, voice low. "I didn't know what it would cost her, or you." She stared at him, every breath a struggle. "You're part of why she's dead." "I know. The simplicity of it, the absence of excuses, cut deeper than denial ever could." Camilla pushed back from the table. "You said you'd protect me, but you're protecting yourself. You're trying to make peace with what you did." He took a step toward her, his jaw tight. "Maybe. Or maybe I'm trying to make sure you don't pay the same price I did." "Which is what?" He met her eyes. "Losing everyone who ever looked at me without fear." Her anger faltered, replaced by something quieter, sadder. The kind of understanding that hurts more than hate. That evening they left the villa. The sky was overcast again, streaked with silver clouds that swallowed the sun. Matthias drove while Camilla sat silent beside him, the photograph of her father folded tightly in her hand. Hours passed before she spoke. "You said my father's working in Monterrey?" "Yes." "What are you going to do when you find him?" He glanced at her. "That's up to you. I don't want revenge. Then what do you want?" She turned toward the window. "An answer." "Just one," he nodded. "Then that's what you'll get." By nightfall they reached a small border town. Dusty, quiet, the kind of place where secrets went to rest. Matthias parked outside a crumbling motel lit by a single flickering bulb. "This is where he's been staying," he said. Camilla's pulse raced. She looked at the door of room 12, its number hanging crooked. "He's inside?" Matthias nodded. "Do you want me to go in first?" She shook her head. "No, I'll go." "Camilla." She turned to him, eyes sharp with something that wasn't fear anymore. "You said I had to stop running. This is where it ends." He watched her cross the parking lot alone, every step deliberate, her shadow long beneath the light. She knocked. Silence. Then a voice. Older. Rougher. One she hadn't heard in more than a decade. "Who is it?" "It's me," she said softly. "Camilla." The door opened. When she came back an hour later, she didn't speak. Matthias was waiting by the SUV, rain beginning to fall again. She climbed into the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. He didn't ask. Finally, she whispered, He didn't even say sorry. Just excuses. He said he thought sending money was enough. Matthias's hands tightened on the wheel. I'm sorry, she shook her head. Don't be. You were right. The truth doesn't fix anything. It just stops the bleeding. They sat in silence for a while, the rain soft against the windshield. Then she turned to him. Matthias, what about your truth? He frowned. You said mine is tied to yours. What does that mean? He looked out the window, his reflection faint in the glass. Your father wasn't the only one who took money from that deal. I did too. I thought I was taking from men who wouldn't miss it. I used it to disappear, to build this quiet life. But your mother found out. She was going to expose the transfers. Camilla froze. She knew about you? She came to me the night before she died. His voice cracked for the first time. She begged me to leave before it was too late. I told her I couldn't. I thought I had time to protect her. Camilla's chest ached. So you've been carrying this all along? He nodded once. You were never supposed to see me again. When I saw your car on the road that night, it was like the past refusing to stay buried. She looked at him through tears she didn't try to hide. Then why help me? Because I couldn't save her, he said. But I could save you. Outside, the rain blurred the world into streaks of gray and silver. Camilla reached for his hand, hesitating before their fingers touched. You already did. For a long time, neither moved. Then Matthias whispered, This ends tonight. We go home tomorrow. You don't owe this life anything anymore. She looked out at the rain again, her reflection merging with his in the window. I think we both stopped owing it a long time ago, she said. When dawn came, the storm had passed. The road stretched ahead, clean and quiet. They didn't talk about forgiveness or redemption or what came next. Some things didn't need to be spoken to be understood. And somewhere between the silence and the road, they both began to believe, just barely, that the past could finally loosen its hold. The highway back to Laredo stretched endless and quiet under the pale morning sky. The world was washed clean from the night's storm. The air smelled of wet sage and fuel, and the clouds drifted low over the flat expanse of desert. Matthias drove without speaking. Camilla watched the passing horizon through the window, her reflection ghosting against the glass. The same face, yet not the same woman. She had seen too much now, her father's eyes hollow with guilt, the truth behind her mother's death, and the pieces of Matthias's past that had cost them both their peace. Everything was different. He finally broke the silence. I thought when this was over it would feel like freedom. Doesn't it? She asked softly. He shook his head. It feels like the world just stopped moving. Camilla turned to him. His hands on the wheel were steady, but his jaw was tight, his eyes unfocused. The look of a man driving toward something he couldn't avoid. You could leave, she said. Disappear for good this time. And do what? Change my name again? Pretend I don't remember the people I couldn't save? You could start over, she said quietly. You deserve that. He smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. You still think I deserve good things. She looked away. You think you're the only one who's done things they regret? You didn't destroy anyone, Camilla, didn't I? She said, her voice cracking. I hated my father so much I never went back. I let my mother carry it all. She died alone because I was too proud to listen. Her voice broke, and she pressed her fist against her mouth. Matthias said nothing. Instead, he slowed the car to a stop on the shoulder of the road. The sky stretched wide above them, bright, merciless blue. He turned toward her. Listen to me. You didn't kill her. The people who used her did. The same ones who used me. That's what this life does. It makes you believe you're guilty just for surviving it. Tears streaked down her cheeks. Then why can't I stop feeling like I owe her more than this? He hesitated, then reached across the seat and brushed his thumb gently along her jaw, wiping the rain and tears from her skin. Maybe because you're the kind of person she raised you to be. You carry love like it's a debt, but it isn't. It's the reason you get to live. Her breath caught. And you? What do you carry? His eyes softened. That rare, unguarded look she'd only seen once, the night he found her on the roadside. Guilt, he said. And you, her chest tightened. Matthias. He looked down, the corners of his mouth curving in something like sadness. You don't owe me anything. I'll finish what we started. Clean up what I can, disappear for good. But you, Camila, you go home. Wherever that is now. I don't have a home. You will, he said gently. They drove on until dusk, reaching the outskirts of the city. The skyline shimmered through the heat. Glass, steel, and neon reflected in puddles from the storm. Matias parked near the edge of town, behind an abandoned warehouse that overlooked the Rio Grande. This is where I end it, he said quietly. What do you mean? I'm going to meet with the last of my old contacts. Turn over everything I have, names, routes, accounts. It'll cut off the blood before it starts again. That's dangerous. He smiled faintly. So was meeting you, she shook her head. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. I can't build a life on the ruins of someone else's. Not again. Her voice trembled. And if something happens? He reached for her hand, his touch warm, grounding. Then you'll know I finally did something right. Tears blurred her vision. Don't go. Camila? She gripped his arm. Please. He looked at her. Really looked. And something broke in him. You make it very hard to walk away. Then don't. For a moment, neither moved. The world outside was silent except for the soft hum of the river. Then he leaned forward, his forehead resting against hers. His breath brushed her lips. If I stay, he whispered, I'll destroy you too. She shook her head. No. You'd save me. But he was already gone, the warmth of his hand slipping from hers as he stepped out of the car and into the fading light. The meeting lasted less than an hour. She watched from the distance, heart pounding, as Matias handed over a small folder, his last weapon, his last confession. There were no raised voices, no violence, just quiet nods, and then he walked away alone. When he returned, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. The world was painted in blue shadows. It's done, he said. What happens now? I leave tonight, Camila looked down. And me? He reached out, tilting her chin up so she met his gaze. You live. You take what's left of this story and turn it into something worth surviving for. She felt the tears come again. Unstoppable now. I don't want to say goodbye, he smiled softly. Then don't. He kissed her forehead, a touch that was both promise and apology. When he stepped back, his eyes glistened with something she had never seen there before. Camila, he said, voice barely a whisper. You were the only part of my life that wasn't built on fear. Then he turned and walked toward the bridge, his silhouette fading into the deepening night. She stood there long after he was gone, the sound of the river steady beneath the hum of the city. The air was cool now, the storm scent replaced by dust and memory. Finally, she whispered, goodbye, though she wasn't sure if it was for him or for the woman she had been before he stopped his car on that dark road. Weeks later, she found herself in a small apartment overlooking the same river. The nights were quieter now. The fear that once lived in her chest had been replaced by something softer, still painful, but alive. On her desk sat the photograph of her mother, and beside it, a folded note Matias had left in the glove box. You can't erase the past, Camila, but you can choose what comes after it. She smiled through tears and set the note beside the window. The wind caught its edge, lifting it slightly, as if to remind her that nothing stays still forever. And as the first light of dawn touched the city, Camila finally understood what he had meant that night in the rain, that sometimes protection isn't about walls or weapons, it's about giving someone the strength to walk away and still believe they deserve the sunrise, the end.